Following the breaking news, there you see it. It is Carnival Triumph making its way on shore, painfully slow. More than 4,000 people on board a ship that has essentially been dead for 5 days now, or at least till Sunday, as they try to pull it in. Now traveling about 1 mile per hour, which would mean that it is hours and hours away from shore, despite the fact that passengers now can actually see land, which might be a little bit frustrating, but also encouraging. I want to bring in two folks who know this ship and know the deal very well. Of course, Jack Herring. He is a former senior officer with Carnival Cruise Lines. He has sailed on that very ship, on the Triumph. Also want to bring in Jack Hickey. He's an attorney. He's represented a lot of folks who've had problems on cruise ships. And first of all, I want to go to you, Jay. Let's continue the conversation. A lot of people looking at this thinking, why can't you get the passengers off the ship? Why do they even have to stay until the very end, until they reach that port? Why can't you start, if you've got tugboats all around, plucking people off the ship, particularly those who are the most miserable?
Yeah, so imagine the onboard ferry on the ship is this tiny little boat, and we saw your guys out there in the pilot boats. They're bobbing up and down next to a cruise ship that's stationary. Now you have to put a gangway between those two and put young children, elderly, and try to get them across. It's very dangerous.
Is it just too dangerous? I mean, the ship is moving rather slowly.
It is, and at the same time, the sea conditions can change rapidly. So you can go from 1 to 2 foot waves to something much worse. Imagine the gangway pulls away from the ship when people are on it. People fall into the water. You could get crushed between the two boats. They could get swept away. I mean, it would just be absolutely a very dangerous situation to do something like that. All
right, Jack, I want to bring you in because so far we've heard from Carnival officials, and here's what they're offering, right? Here's what they're offering folks who are on board this ship. You get $500, a free flight home, and a full refund for the trip, and a credit for another cruise. So far we've heard people not really excited about getting on board another ship. Do they have a case here?
Yes, they do, Suzanne. I think they do have a case, actually. You know, their legal liability is all governed by the maritime law and by the cruise ticket. And basically, to bring an action, to bring a lawsuit against Carnival for mental anguish only, right? Mental anguish only, you need two things. One is negligence, and the other is actual exposure to actual physical injury. I think you have both here. You have negligence. I mean, 4 days at sea, sewage everywhere. Why are there not backup generators on this ship? Number one, that's just the one thing. And then exposure to actual physical injury. I mean, with raw sewage, you've got the prospect of hepatitis A. You've got the prospect of encephalitis because of mosquitoes that love polluted waters and things. So I think that is actual physical injury. And these people have been exposed to that, and it's just horrible conditions. This is like nothing we've ever seen in prior driftings of ships and in prior ship fires. So I think they do have recourse, and it's to sue Carnival in Miami, Florida, which is where the ticket requires.
Jack, how is this different than, like, say, if you were on a plane on an airline? I mean, obviously there are regulations in place where you're sitting on the tarmac for a certain amount of time, and by the time that expires, either they've got to bring you back to the airport, or if you're out there, you certainly are compensated. Is there something that's similar like that for a ship if you're aboard a ship?
No, there's not really something comparable to that because, you know, when you're on the tarmac and in an airplane, first of all, two things. First of all, the FAA regulations apply and certain treaties apply when you're on an airplane. Okay. And so that's all legal mumbo jumbo. But, you know, when you're on an airplane for a couple of hours, that's really different from being stranded for 4 days and being exposed to sewage, because that's what we're hearing now. We don't have all of the facts now, but we have passengers who are, and it's pretty much a uniform complaint. You know, it's not just 1 or 2 people talking about sewage. I mean, it's pretty much everybody saying, man, it is, the stench of sewage is everywhere. We have to sleep in tents on the deck. This is really something far afield, completely and fundamentally different from waiting on the tarmac for a couple hours. I would not put this in that same category.
Jay, I want to bring you in there. Jay, hold on for a minute, if you will. I believe we have Brianna Atkins, who's aboard the ship right now, who can talk to us. Brianna, can you hear us? All right, we're going to try to get her back on the line. I think the phone line dropped. But Jay, is there a backup system on that ship? Jack was saying, look, you know, I mean, we've uniformly heard from all these passengers who are really having a tough time there. Is there a backup generator system? Is there a backup system in place for if the toilets aren't working, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the Triumph is normally powered by 6 diesel-electric generators. Each one is the size of a bus. And 80% of the electricity used on board goes towards propulsion. So if you take those away, even if you have a backup generator, you're only going to be able to provide lighting in limited areas. And you're certainly not going to be able to provide ventilation for a vessel that's the size of 3 football fields.
Why was it they weren't able to drop that generator or get that generator to the ship earlier? We saw the airdrop that happened yesterday, late yesterday. Couldn't they have done that a lot earlier?
Yeah, they may have. There could have been winds, who knows? But, you know, again, it would be like a Band-Aid on a gashing wound. I mean, it might provide a little bit of relief. But again, there's no way that we're going to be able to drop a backup generator for propulsion. And even you look at the toilets. I mean, those things require a vacuum system to provide, the suction for the toilets. And you think about, there are 1,000+ toilets on the Triumph. And that requires a massive amount of electricity. And so, again, it would just be too much for a backup generator.
All right, Jay, Jack, stay with us. I know we keep talking about the toilet situation, but people are curious what's going on. It's a very important thing. Martin Savage, he's on shore with some folks who are waiting very anxiously for their loved ones. Martin, who do you have with you?